WBSM.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Spooky Southcoast. Tim Weisberg here, along with the silent assassin Matt Costa, science advisor Matt Moniz, and our special guest co-host for tonight, the big guy, John Brightman, joining us here in the Spooky Studio. You can watch it on SpookySouthcoast.com/SpookyTV or the Ustream app if you use that as well. Just search for Spooky Southcoast. You can also join in the discussion. Sorry, I was blanking there for a second. Join in the discussion on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com using your Twitter account and the hashtag SpookyLive. And if you use that hashtag, all your tweets related to the show will show up right there on Spooky TV. And we can also follow along with it as well on our Twitter, because we're not so. I'm getting better at the Twitter, I have to say. I broke 1,500.
Hey, that's pretty good.
I have more Twitter followers now than the Spooky Southcoast account. It's like the first time it's ever happened. Yeah. Because, you know, we've been tweeting out of that account for a long time.
Right.
And we've been doing a good job of building that up, but I just never really did much personally, which is funny because I'm a sports writer and they want you to tweet and do all that stuff, but I never really got into it. But I think now I'm into it because it's more interactive. There's people there to talk to, so it's not like I'm just throwing things out there and nothing's ever coming back. So I like to have conversations. I don't like to talk to myself.
I still don't get the whole idea of Twitter.
I can see the positives of it, and I see the negatives of it as well. There's been some drama this week,
yes,
but we'll just leave that alone. We're rising above. But so if you want to follow along with us, at SpookySC is our Twitter handle, and you can tweet about the show using the hashtag SpookyLive as well. So that's the way that you can interact with us. You can also give us a call, 508-996-0500. 877-996-1420. And for those of you who are out of the listening range of WBSM, or for those of you who are not watching on Spooky TV and you want to just listen to the show, you can use the Radio Pup app, which all you have to do is go and look in the station search of the Radio Pup app, type in New Bedford, and you will find WBSM, and you will be able to listen to us live. And not just us, but all the great WBSM programming as well. And want to say hello to the Dark Matter Radio Network audience. We always rebroadcast on the Dark Matter Radio Network each week. So hello to all of you who are listening. And also, you can view the show on YouTube as well, which we have a lot of people that are doing that lately. And there was one other thing that I wanted to plug in terms of how people are accessing the show. Yes, Stitcher. Stitcher has been acquired by another company. And they've acquired another company, and it's growing, and it's even bigger and better. So you can actually listen to us on Stitcher as well, and we're also on TuneIn for people who use that. So it's everywhere. See, that's the thing. We can't keep track of where the show is.
There's so many things, so many options.
Well, when we first started doing this program, we thought, we're doing it for the local audience, and all right, maybe we'll record it, and we'll try this podcasting thing and see what happens. And I remember debating about it. We're like, what, $10 a month? Do we want to commit spending $10 a month for the podcast? Well, that's coming out of our pocket, man. Right. So, it was a lot of discussion about whether or not it was even worth doing it. And of course it was, because we have people listening to us all over the world. We thank you for it. I hear each week from people who tell me that they love the show. I heard from somebody who listens in China just last week. People in Japan listen to the show, Norway, folks in Australia, New Zealand. I never would have thought that would ever happen.
I totally agree with you, because I've noticed right after we always do the Bridgewater Triangle show, my website gets hits from Norway, China, all different places like that during the week at normal or any other time of the year it wouldn't. So you're absolutely right about that. It's
always the biggest show of the year too. The entire worldwide audience wants to know more about the Bridgewater Triangle, so we're happy to bring that to you. And we'll actually be doing a follow-up show coming up from the Bridgewater Triangle investigation show that we did a couple weeks ago, where everybody that captured some evidence and had some experiences, we want to have them all come back and share with us what it was that they encountered while they were out there. It's something that we don't always remember to do when we get into the holiday season here and things get busy, but we will definitely do it this year. But tonight we are talking about the Villisca Ax Murder case. Our guest is Johnny Hauser, and he is going to be continuing the discussion with us. If you have any questions for Johnny, you can just give us a call at 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. And we were mentioning before the news break, Johnny, that the house is open for paranormal investigation. And how often are there people in there? It seems like it's pretty busy, especially this time of year.
Yeah, it's pretty well booked solid. I mean, we used to book about a year in advance, and then people were just forgetting that they booked. So now we kind of do 6-month increments, but, it's pretty solid. We get people from all around the world and a lot of return visitors, and, it's been great to meet a lot of like-minded people in this field from all over the world.
I guess, though, when you have a case like that is, we see it with Lizzie Borden. It's not just about experiencing the paranormal for a lot of folks and paranormal research. A lot of folks are true crime buffs that want to come in and want to try to be the one to crack the case, to solve the case. You must get a lot of that as well.
Oh, yeah, we do a lot of forensics classes, criminal justice classes, psychology classes. I've had a lot of homicide detectives stay the night, college professors to Catholic priests to doctors. I mean, all walks of life.
How did you personally get involved with the house?
Well, I've always been a weirdo.
It's all right. We like those around here.
Yeah, I tell my wife, it's like, I don't know any normal people. Talking about aliens and, string theory is like normal to me. But, for me, it started off with, cryptozoology to UFOs. I'm a big conspiracy theorist. And then the ghost thing just kind of happened. I ended up out here, befriended Darwin, the owner. He was in his 70s, and I love history. I'm a huge history nerd, and pretty soon he's just asking, he goes, "You want a job? You're here every day talking to me. I might as well pay you to be here." So back then, we had the museum in town also, and I did a lot of senior bus tours and schools, and pretty soon it just kind of morphed into the overnights as well. And I right off the bat, I was like, "So can I go in there anytime I want?" And he's like, "Yeah, have at it." So I started staying the night like crazy. I had to have the keys to the place, so it's like, you bet I'm in there every night investigating, trying to come up with evidence. And for me, it's never really been about trying to prove the existence or coming up with an awesome piece of video, which I love watching people's videos, but unless you have Abe Lincoln ghost in a scientific laboratory answering questions and for 2 months, I mean, skeptics will always find a reason to disprove something. So for me, it was just my own personal, and that's kind of how I got wrapped up into the whole thing. And pretty soon, here we are now, I guess.
Well, what was your first paranormal encounter that you can define as being something unexplained at the house?
Yeah, one of the very first things, and I'm very skeptic at the same time. So while I believed in ghosts, if this makes any sense, I believed in ghosts, but I couldn't get it in my head that this place was haunted. It's like, oh, come on. Okay, let's see these ghosts. And it's about 7 years ago. Every day before the day tours, I'll walk the house to make sure it looks good before I let people in. And I hear stomping across the floor upstairs in the kids' room. And my thought was some drunk dude broke in here, passed out, now he's waking up. At the time, we still have no police in Villisca, which is sad but true. So it's like, okay, well, I'm the cop. I got to go deal with it. There's people waiting. There's nobody I can call. And I went up there, and there was absolutely nothing. And my friends are like, "Oh, house is creepy." It's like, I know what footsteps are at this point in my life, and that was stomping. And that was probably one of the very first things. That's when I really started investigating this place pretty specifically, only this place, for years and years. Because I thought, well, I have a place that obviously has activity. Let's study this. Let's find trends. Let's see if there's certain, like certain dates that these things happen, moon phases, anniversaries, whatever. Can I predict paranormal activity? Different pieces of equipment, what works, what doesn't, when does it work? And I really started delving into that, keeping logs of other people's information, and now it's just kind of run its course for me, and I've moved on to other places, of course, but that's what really kind of got me wrapped up in Villisca, in the story. Like, I just fell in love with the story and the family and those poor kids. I mean, come on.
Well, and obviously, too, the activity predates your involvement with the house. I mean, when did they first start getting... When did somebody start to realize that there was more to this house than just a sordid history, that there was also some activity going on?
There's... people wanted to stay the night, and Darwin said, why on earth do you want to stay the night? And they said, well, paranormal investigating. He goes, what in the world's a paranormal? Like, that wasn't even a thought for him. It was pure history, 100%. He had his hand in the Johnny Carson birthplace, which is the next town over. I mean, this is what he did. And finally, Darwin hated telling people no. He was just a nice, good guy. And so he finally started, some paranormal teams out of Omaha wanted to come down, and pretty soon radio stations caught wind of what was going on, so they wanted to come down and watch the investigators. And I remember one time he said there was a paranormal team, and they were getting kind of upset because the whole yard was filled with half of the town wondering what's going on, excited, are they finding anything? And that's when he said, people are having a lot of fun, and they're smiling and laughing, and maybe that's what this place needs, is happiness back into it. So he started opening it up. People started uploading video, audio to their websites, to YouTube. Every one of the TV shows that have come, which have been a lot, including like the movie Sinister, I mean, just on and on. We've never made one phone call to any of them. That's all people contacting us, and that was important to Darwin, too. He's like, the paranormal happens, but we're about the history. We're not going to solicit it. If they want to come, possibly, if it's a good show, So and we've turned down a ton of shows, really bad shows that have wanted to come. It's like, what? Do you even know what this place is?
Yeah, I can imagine some of them. I've seen some of them. So
yeah.
Well, it's good though that was the approach though, to think that yes, the paranormal is important, but it's not primary, because a lot of folks will fall into that now because it's hot, because it's popular, and they'll fall into that, and they'll overbook it, and they'll have it become almost a liability to have people in there investigating the paranormal because they're causing more harm than good. So it's good that there was always that balance there.
Yeah, he always told me, and I've always told history first, and the house is just the house. We're not going to cheese it up. It is what it is. If something happens, something happens. If not, then it doesn't. He always told people, he's like, the paranormal just happened, and you can't ignore it. You can only ignore it for so long before finally you're like, okay, something else is going on here that needs some attention too, and some answers.
I mean, really, with a place with a history like that and with a backstory like that, it would be easy to keep it open all the time for paranormal research based on the history alone. It wouldn't have to deliver. Just the fact that these people were murdered there, that they were killed by an axe there, would be enough to want to draw people in. But it seems like the house delivers too.
I got a question.
And it's not one of those things like the house was popular before. A lot of the TV shows come. I mean, that opened it up to a bigger audience, of course, but the house has always sustained itself.
Now I have a question for you about the case itself.
Mm-hmm.
All of these 8 people were killed in bed, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, is there a possibility, or was it checked to see if they could have possibly have been drugged in some case? Because there would had to have been somebody, creating some sort of ruckus trying to defend themselves, unless, like were there any defensive wounds to the bodies? You know,
Yeah, right off the bat, the thought of ether was possibly involved, and I guess that leaves a pretty distinct odor on the corpse. I have no idea.
a very distinct odor in the house. Yes.
And they checked for that, and they came to the conclusion that nothing was involved. The oldest Stillinger girl was the only one with a defensive wound. She had like a mark on her arm, almost like she went up to block. But, you got to take all the investigating kind of with a grain of salt. It's like, how well was it done? I mean, we didn't know anything here in Villisca. And, even with fingerprinting, I mean, the first fingerprinting crime was, 1890 something?
1880s actually was the Jack the Ripper case was one of the first times that they had used fingerprinting, if I'm not mistaken, Scotland Yard. Yeah.
So modern forensics was in its infancy, but a long way from Villisca.
Well, we had mentioned some of the similarities between the Villisca case and the Borden case, but the way that they were murdered, albeit with an axe instead of a shotgun, but the fact that there was that number of people killed in bed, that somebody had to have made a noise, but yet, nobody seemed to have reacted to it. It's very similar to the Amityville case.
They were shot in bed point blank with a .30 caliber hunting rifle.
And granted, those neighbors were a little bit closer probably than in Villisca, but still.
I'm talking in the house.
Right. You would think that people would have a reaction to
they still say
what
that
was
there
going
was
on.
2 people in that.
That's still one of the theories.
As an avid hunter, I've heard the claims of, it was thundering that night in Amityville. Come on. If anybody's shot
You're
at 38,
still going to hear a shotgun.
Yeah, I mean, there's no mistaking that with thunder in the next room. Give me a break, But yeah, it's very similar. It's like, how can you kill that many people and nobody wakes up? And I asked one of the forensics groups, so it's like, you guys are the experts. And they said, the best we can think of is he cinched up towards the head of the axe, delivered like 1-2 blows on each person to incapacitate them, came back, delivered more blows afterwards. That was their take, but it's all open to speculation, interpretation. I mean, who knows? We have no idea what happened.
But again, that sounds like somebody that would have a pretty sound idea of what it was that they were doing and premeditation to be able to do it in that manner.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, the guy definitely knew what he was doing. But like we were saying, if it's the first time, he's going to be fumbling all over the place, tripping on stuff, freaking out, getting out of there. To me, it was a skilled killer. I hate to use the word skilled, but somebody that knew what they were doing.
Now, you said that the oil lamps were found at the foots of the bed?
Foot of the Ina and Lena's bed and the parents' bed, and the tops were put under dressers. The wicks were all the way down. And that's, there's about 25 murders with an axe within a 3-4 year period from Colorado Springs, Iowa, Kansas, Illinois, Missouri, all very similar to this. Like the one in Kansas, family of 5, I believe it was, I might be mistaken on the number, Sunday evening as they were sleeping, mirrors covered. Colorado Springs had the oil lamp at the edge of the bed, top under dressers. My theory, traveling serial killer, these were his little calling cards because these idiots want to be known for what they do, and his mark, his stamp, is kind of what I'm going with this month. It'll probably change next month.
Sure, right.
Well, I'm going back to your ether theory. That makes sense. If he takes the shrouds off them and lowers the flame, that prevents a flashover because the flame. What happens is the ether vapors build up, and with the shroud around it, it'll auto ignite. And if he takes the shroud off, it's going to burn normally, and it's not going to flash.
Very true, and I think this guy wanted people to see it, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was in the mob of people that went through that morning.
Now, have you ever had a group, like a scientific group, whether it be kids from colleges or some type of a reenactment team come through and try and reenact the way it was done and try and piece it together like present day?
Yeah, quite a few, and myself included. It's like you can't be in that house without just thinking, like, how did this happen? Like, how I had people come in and it's like, can I creep out of this attic without them hearing me? I mean, that's one of the theories, was the killer was hiding in the attic, waited for him to come home. I think it could be done. When I first started working there, not long afterwards, there was a murder in Georgia. A guy killed 8 people in a trailer house with a hammer, and toxicology showed no drugs or alcohol. I mean, so that happened. And that was a big, during the Kelly trial, one attorney saying, no way in the world he went in there and killed 8 people without anyone waking up. And the other attorney saying, well, you're telling us all day how impossible this was, but it happened.
You mentioned a very interesting, and we do have a call on the line. If anybody would like to call in with any questions for Johnny, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. But you had mentioned the possibility that the killer could have been in that group of people, could have been in the house admiring his handiwork, which would be the sign of a truly sinister individual, but also would fit the profile of a serial killer, of somebody who would want to be in that position and would want to take that kind of pleasure in seeing his handiwork.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons I really wanted Dead Files to come. I wanted Steve, is that his name?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Steve DeShavi.
Yep. I wanted his take, homicide detective from New York. It's like, I want to hear your, and he's like, no way this was a two-person job. This is like one sicko guy came in and did this, and he goes, I guarantee he is, he thought Kelly did it. He's like, Kelly absolutely did this. Fits the profile 100%.
Well, we do have a call on the line for you again, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast with Johnny Hauser. Hello, you're on the air.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I thought I lost you. My question is for Johnny Hauser. You've been investigating the Axe Murder house for several years now. Have you ever felt like anything followed you home, or do you use anything to protect yourself from that, or?
Yes, absolutely. I live in Mary Peckham's house. In her bedroom right now, talking to you guys, which is right next door, literally like 10 feet. And the reason I really stopped investigating the place was because I was having a lot of stuff happen here at home that was, affecting my daughter. And I think it's cool. I wish my house was like Carol Ann's bedroom on Poltergeist, stuff flying around, but it really kind of made for not a nice home life. And, I really kind of turned towards my faith to make it stop, and I just ignored it. And every once in a while something will happen here, and I just don't even feed into it, and it's been really quiet for a couple years. But at one point I was getting very moody, very reclusive. Friends would come over and slam the doors. Why won't people leave me alone? I'm sick of people, and finally a good buddy of mine's like, dude, stay out of that house. And so I stayed out of it, and by day 3 I was back to normal. And pretty soon my wife, who hates this stuff, she's scared of her own shadow, like literally, is wanting to go over there. And I was like, it's cool. She's getting over it, wanting to get into ghost hunting for me. And, my buddy's like, I don't think so. So I made her stop, and now you ask her, and she's like, yeah, I have no idea why I wanted to go over there. So it's like it's pulling her over. And so I distance myself as much from that place as I can while working there.
Well, that does happen, though, where sometimes it can become all-consuming, and you need to have a break from it, and you need to get yourself away, because you don't want it to, you don't want that story to become your story. You don't want that to become your life.
Exactly. And, we've been real quiet, except for our friend Scott and Krista from Ohio State Reformatory came down and stayed a few days with us. And, this place was every day stuff was happening, but I'm pretty sure Scott probably had something come from him with that place because it stopped when they left.
Yeah, I mean, it does happen. Thank you very much for the call, though, caller.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Have a good night.
Fantastic evening. And if anybody else would like to call in, again, 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. And I'm going to just pat myself on the back there because I was able to hang up with the caller and not lose Johnny. So that might be might be a first here on Spooky South Coast. But one of the questions that I would have, too, for yourself, you're saying that you are getting away from the Villisca house in terms of investigation. Obviously, you're still involved with the tours and people coming in, but you are investigating other locations. Do you feel like the spirits that you have made contact with at the Moore house have tried to reach out to you in other locations as well?
Yeah, I personally, I love ghost stalkers. I've been close with Penny for a number of years, and I believe kind of the same philosophy. It's like, why? Okay, everybody has the potential to become ghosts. Why are places haunted sometimes?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of, the whole portal idea is wonderful, and I also kind of think like some of these places are just like a beacon. You go out in the woods and turn on a flashlight, you got every insect in the world flooding to you. You have one of these places where every night there's a revolving cast of people wanting to communicate. If you have something to say, that's like Grand Central Station, So I've encountered things next door that have nothing to do with the house. I've encountered things at other places that seem to be Villisca oriented. It's strange. I think we're just very in the infancy of figuring this out and piecing it together.
Well, the main reason I ask is, and you might have heard me tell this story before, I know that these guys here have, I actually was involved, it was a Legend Trips event, but it was at a different location, and a spirit came through on the, I was either using the Shack Hack or the SB7, one of the two, and it came through very strongly and very negatively in what it was discussing, and it said straight out, when I said, what do you want to talk about? It said murder. I said, what kind of murder? It said Axe Murder. And I said, who is this? And it said John, which is a name that is, associated with one of the entities at the Lizzie Borden house. And I said, well, where do I know you from, John? And it said Lizzie's. And so I turned the box off and I said, that's it. We're not using it for the rest of the night because I didn't want something, from there, something that obviously had ill intentions to be creeping into this other investigation in another location that might not have necessarily been, that type of activity. And also, as I made the joke at the time, we were at the Faring Tavern, which is a $99 ticket. Lizzie Borden's is a $135 ticket, so it really wouldn't be fair, to people that pay more. But
yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
And it's like I've always been confused about the idea of ghosts being trapped in a place. Because for me, it's like, why would these walls and stuff that exist in our reality right now affect them? Which very well could be, but who's to say they can go, from one portal to another portal to other places? I mean, I think we're limiting ourselves by saying they're stuck in one place and cannot leave.
Yeah, I mean, and to think that whatever is on the other side is that limiting. We like to think that when you transition from this realm to the next, that you're going to have more knowledge and have more freedom as in that form. So we would like to think that somebody isn't forced to be stuck in that spot. But it seems like more often than not, when there's a tragedy, that can happen. And I'm not somebody that believes in people being able to go in and help spirits move over and, move into the white light and all that kind of stuff. I think what ends up happening is it's such an emotional, just such an overwhelmingly emotional event that it's like a permanent stain. It's like punching a wall. No matter what you do to cover it, the fact that you punch that wall will always remain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I believe that any place that has such a horrific thing happen that imprints that negative energy will always be there. And, is it the ghost of the soul of the person, or is it that energy manifesting as whatever it wants to?
Yeah, I get concerned about that too. I get concerned about if we are dealing with a place where there's been overwhelmingly evil acts, like at Villisca, that there's the possibility that there was something there that caused that to happen. I throw that theory out all the time with Lizzie Borden's, and people say to me that makes a lot of sense, but Jesus, I hope that isn't true. Because, what I'm saying is that there's something negative, something evil there that just drew the Bordens into it, and they were just who were there at the time, and that maybe it's the same thing with this.
Well, look what happened at the Borden property next door 20 years prior.
Right. There was a murder there where the mother murdered her children and took her own life. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like there was something there that goes beyond just the evil of human beings, and it used them as kind of pawns in its own game. And I would hate to think that the same thing might have happened there as well, that you might have a place that is not only has this evil presence over it, but is now playing along to keep people going in there, which kind of segues into my next question. And I know that it's kind of hard to really discuss anything of what went on, but we had the story that happened the other night, and I know you probably can't discuss too much about it, Johnny, but the situation that happened, it was something that was out of the control of anybody involved in the house. It was the act of the individual investigator that was there working, investigating at the time. But maybe there was some kind of an influence there.
Yeah, that whole thing is just like shocking and disturbing, and
because you guys have never had anything like that happen before.
No, never. We've never had the cops ever come to the house for anything. And these people, it's their third time there, normal, great people. I feel horrible for this guy. Just like waking up that morning, nobody told us. We heard it on the news.
Really?
And Martha is an older woman, and she's in tears over this. She said she just couldn't believe it. She's like, why would somebody do that to themselves? She just couldn't wrap her head around it. And I couldn't either. As far as what happened, I have no idea. I don't want to speculate either way. I hope this guy, from what I hear, he's expected to make a full recovery, and maybe he'll come out and say what happened. Maybe he won't. I don't know. But the whole thing is just, I teared up. Like that morning is like, no way did this happen. I thought it was a joke.
I mean, do we know anything about what kind of an item it was that the stab wounds happened with?
He had a knife.
What type of knife were we talking about?
Like a knife, like a hunting style knife.
So pretty good sized blade.
And I've seen people. It's like, well, why would you let him in there? It's like, okay, we're in Iowa. Camo pants and a knife hooked to your belt is common clothing around here. That's nothing else normal. I go to the gas station. Everybody in there has a knife on their side. It's a big hunting, farming town,
So, it could have been something just as simple as, stumbling around in the dark.
Well, you got to bear in mind, a knife is only a tool, and it only becomes a weapon when you use it as such.
Right. It could have been an accidental.
Exactly. And honestly, I have no idea what happened. I mean, none of us have any clue what went down in that house. It's one of those. It's so horrible, and I pray for that family. And the one thing that I got out of this was the paranormal. We talk about paranormal unity, and the paranormal teams fight and bicker and argue with each other. It's like a family. Families fight and bicker and argue, but when you need them, they're there, no questions asked. And I was really blown away by the outpouring of support with the paranormal community.
I saw your post on Facebook, and the first time I heard about it was with your post, and I was kind of shocked about it too. And unfortunately, with being an investigator, and I think these guys here, and you'll probably agree with me, what's the worst part about this is whether the guy does come out and say what happened or if he doesn't, you're always going to get those people out there that go, oh, well, it was the house that caused it. It was this that caused it. We're never going to know the true story possibly. And it's unfortunately going to give a bad name for the field, a bad name for the house, which eventually could stop all of us from being able to investigate places like Villisca or anywhere in general like that, because they're going to worry about lawsuits and stuff happening.
Exactly. It's a no-win situation. It's just horrible any way you look at it. And, what gets me is, like, everybody in the paranormal community is very supportive, and, like, I love everybody so much for all the comments. The townspeople have been surprisingly very supportive with us. But then you get the people making comments that have no idea about what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I've never even been here. Like, there's one lady goes, oh, you need to shut the doors of that place. You're just enabling mentally unstable people to a place to do their crazy acts. And I'm like, well, you better shut down public schools and post offices too, because their track record's way worse than ours.
That's a good point.
And then you get the other person, and these are from people that aren't paranormal related, just regular Joes, I guess you'd say. One lady's like, well, going on about the mental angle on this guy, which, I mean, I've talked to him several times. Seems like a pretty normal dude to me.
I mean, but it could be that.
Going off about this guy, and like 2 posts under it, she has a banner about helping people with depression. It's like, it's one or the other, Don't sit here and cast stones when you're trying to, you have a thing about depression or whatever. It's like, who knows what happened?
Listen, I don't want to speculate too much, but it's entirely possible. It is possible that the gentleman could be mentally ill and could have been trying to do himself harm. It could be possible that he was trying to become part of the legend, part of the story. It could be possible that he was just trying to use a trigger object to get a rise out of the spirits and things went bad in the dark. All of these things are possible. And not one of them would be the fault of you or the people that are in charge of that investigation that night or the owner of the house. You can't hold everybody responsible for the actions of the individual because people are going to make their own decisions and they're going to make their own choices.
Exactly. And, once I found it out, like, the angle of paranormal or being forced or, like, none of that's even on my mind. Like, I was like, man, I hope this guy's okay. My thoughts are with his family, with him. And then my second thought was, not again. Like, I don't want to go over there and clean this up, It's just too eerie. To have, yeah.
That being said, though, I mean, I guess now you kind of have to put a rule in place. Check your knives at the door, leave them in your car, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Martha's like, well, I guess we're going to have to put a no weapons disclaimer up. It's like, well,
but you can use anything as a weapon.
We have to, but
right, at least eliminate the possibility, and it's not for their own. I'm sure it's more to appease the insurance companies that are going to want some sort of waiver in place and some sort of policy in place to keep people from going. That, Matt. You see what we do with legend trips and the hoops that we make people go through. I make you stand there and make sure everybody signs before they come in.
No, but I'm just saying, okay, so nobody brings a knife. That doesn't stop people from stabbing each other with screwdrivers or bashing.
Right, but you can only
K2 meter against the head.
Yeah. And it's possible. I mean, you're fumbling around in the dark. You never know what could happen. And so it's an inherent risk in what we do, I suppose, because we don't really have to do it in the dark, but we do. So there's an inherent risk in that. And of course, the media is what bothers me the most about it, is that they jump all over it, because the minute something happens and it's even remotely paranormal related, they have to jump all over that angle. It got to the point where I don't know if it's my own personal Facebook metrics because I'm involved in a lot of paranormal, but it was the #1 trending story on my Facebook trends yesterday, because there's all these reports out there of people jumping all over it because it was on a paranormal investigation.
And, like, that's what scares me the most is like it made the New York Times like before we even knew what happened. And I live right next door. I'm the one that checked them in. It's like, in every one of these news quote stories, I mean, I've seen one where it's saying the guy was in the yard stabbing himself multiple times, which is completely untrue. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
They're already making it like a media sensation, which is I don't want at all.
Well, you know, sooner or later it's going to jump to, eventually somebody out there is going to jump to, well, it's the forces that were in the house that caused the original axe murders. They're coming out now, and they caused this guy to do that. You know, somewhere in the news, on Facebook, somehow, some way, that's going to get tied in.
Which could be possible, but why him? Why that moment? Why not all these years before?
Oh, absolutely. But you know it's going to.
Yeah, and that's, you know, sadly. And, like, even, like I said, I'm not going to speculate, and I'm sure this guy's going to make a statement, and no matter what it is, like, I'm not even going to entertain or comment, you know, with any future, like, ideas of that happening. Just because, I mean, we'll never know. The only people that will know is that guy.
Have people been over to your house knocking on your door, like news reporters or anything, asking you questions yet?
Well, they didn't know he lived next door until you just blew up his spot, John. Now they know where to find him.
He outed himself.
That's true.
He did actually
he mentioned
earlier.
it first, yeah.
No, you know, and I was really worried. It's like, oh, geez, I hope there's not freaking news people out front of the house. It's like, come on. And no, there's been nothing. Thank God. Martha's shut down the news people pretty quick.
Good.
You know, she's like, I'm not going to say anything. This is with that family. It's their thing. It's not my place to say a word about it. If they want to talk about it, they can. But I'm not going to speculate.
Has she put the pause button on the investigations, or are you still going as planned?
Well, you know, that was a big talk. It's like, what do we do? You know. And we're talking about an older woman breaking down in tears, which is heart-wrenching to sit and watch, you know. But it's one of those deals, if we would have closed doors, then the stories would have flew even faster of,
right.
Oh, they had to shut down because the too dangerous to investigate, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to even equate it to this, but it's like the terrorist thing, you know. Once you start living in fear and letting that rule your life, then they won, you know.
Right. And not only that, you've got people that are traveling from all over the country to come there and investigate, and they shouldn't have to throw a monkey wrench in their plans because of one person's actions.
And, you know, exactly. And, like, honestly, the overnight investigations have done more good than harm. Like, not long ago, I did a group of troubled gang members from a group home, and I ended up staying with them, and like at the beginning of the night, they're going, oh, you know, I don't know who my dad is. My mom's in prison. I can't wait till I go to prison so I could be a man. And like that ridiculous mentality.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the night, they're like, you know, we don't have it so bad. We have our lives, and we can do anything we want with them. These people don't. And
Wow.
It changed them completely. And, you know, something like that shouldn't be shut down. And paranormal people are good people.
Are you thinking about adding like a house chaperone anytime a group goes in now? A representative of the house, just for security's sake, let's put it that way?
You know, we've tried to, in the past, implement different ideas of like, okay, do we have like a questionnaire for them to fill out to get, you know, how do you weed people out from like serious investigators to people that are going to respect what happened in there. And
the sad part is you can't. Everybody's money is the same. Everybody's reservation is the same. It's kind of we go through the same thing. We all run events here. Yep. You know, you can't get to a position where you start discriminating against one person over another, because it's not our job to decide who's serious and who isn't.
Yep.
And you know, the thing with being on their own, it's like you get a group of 6 people that are comfortable and have that bond together, and then you throw me in the mix just smiling at you all night long. It's going to be so awkward and weird for everybody that, you know, I think the best thing we can do is just keep going on, and, you know, pray that nothing like this ever happens again, because if it was to, then that would probably be it.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. Now, one question I want to ask, because we are almost out of time, but we first started talking over the summer because you're involved with one of the upcoming, actually the season finale of Ghost Stalkers, and we really can't give too much away, but I checked the channel guide earlier on destinationamerica.com, and it does say that the episode takes place at the Farrar School, so we can actually discuss a little bit about the location itself. And when I heard this story, you want to talk about wonderful people that own a location and that are willing to open it up to people. You can't ask for a nicer owner than the woman who owns the Farrar School.
Exactly. I love Jim and Nancy, that run that place and own the place. Are super great people. I've done overnights at the school many, many times and events. And, when I first went, I thought, it's just a school, what could happen? And the place produces evidence, that's for sure.
And it produces a wide variety of evidence. It's not just, you'd expect going to a school that you would encounter some child spirits and that you'd have a lot of, positive vibes in the air too. But there's a darker side to that school as well. Yeah,
and, that was one of the questions I, hopefully will have answered is like, well, why is it haunted? What is haunting that place? Something definitely is, but I could never figure out, the mystery to it.
So a little behind the scenes info here. You did go and filmed with the guys?
Yep.
So we'll probably see you doing some on camera interview stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm super proud to be part of it because I absolutely love the show, and seeing the episode, the newest one at the prison, the seeing Kenny like that just really broke my heart, and it's like I wanted to jump through the TV screen and run into that place to help him. And meeting Chad, Chad is awesome.
You just said that. You just said what you said about Tenny and the blood drain from John Brightman's face, and he's like, "What happened?" I'll tell you after the show. But you're right though. To see people that like John that you see that are experienced, that that you've investigated with, and you see firsthand how he does things, to see something have that profound of an effect on him, it just shows you that this goes beyond just the experience of encountering the other side. It has to do with, as we were discussing at the beginning of the show, it has to do with how you stand up to it as a person and how you react to it and internalize it. And it seems like you're somebody, Johnny, that has come through this journey yourself and made your decision about how you can face up to the paranormal.
Exactly. And, to talk to Chad, I mean, the dude is just so nice, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, and, that hug between them at the end is like, man, that is probably one of the more powerful TV moments I've ever seen. And I love the show because I've screamed in places. I've teared up. One of my buddies collapsed and cried in a place. It's real. It's real life.
I've had people that were, we live tweet during the show, and there were people that were tweeting me, asking me, is John okay? Does John make it out of this okay? I'm like, he's fine. He's okay. He's tweeting right now. He's all right. People were that concerned about him because of everything that was going on. But it was just amazing. And sorry, go ahead.
My wife won't even watch the episode. She's like, I don't want to see, Tinny in that situation. She's like, I just don't even want to watch it. Which, I mean, it broke my heart. I love that dude. I've been close to him for many, many years. And it's like, the only bad thing about the show is now we have to share John Tenney with the rest of the world.
Right, exactly. Well, you and John Tenney are in one of the truly strange positions in the paranormal. I think it might be yourself and Tenney and maybe Dustin Powery of being the only people who are not, nobody's ever said a bad word about any of the three of you. You might be the only ones.
Yeah, that's about right.
Dustin Parry gets away with it because, he's just a generally good person. Tenny gets away with it because how can you not have the ultimate respect for that guy? And yourself, the same thing. Nobody ever has a bad word to say about you. So you're either doing something really right or something really wrong.
Exactly. And, I really try to carry that into my everyday life. Like, I just love people. I love weirdos. I'm a weirdo. I don't think it's that hard to just love each other. And we all have quirks and ticks, but that's what makes everybody great. I'm who I am, I guess, and it has a lot to do with my upbringing, I think.
Well, we truly appreciate you for it. Thank you, Johnny Hauser, for joining us. Again, the website is villiscaiowa.com if people want to find out more about the house and to book an investigation themselves. That's
absolutely.
And we look forward to seeing you on the upcoming season finale of Ghost Stalkers.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It was good talking to you.
Likewise, and we'll talk again soon.
Yep, we'll see you soon.
Have a good night. That is the one and only Johnny Hauser. Again, you can check him out on Ghost Stalkers coming up, the season finale. It'll be a week from this Thursday. This Thursday, the guys will actually be investigating the Wheatlands plantation in Tennessee, and then that will be followed by that episode at the Farrar School. So 6 locations that nobody's ever gone to before.
The Farrar School is pretty cool.
You've been there?
Yeah, they do a Paracon there, and it was pretty outstanding the first year that I went.
I will tell you, I spent a lot of time talking to people on the phone involved with this. When I hung up the phone with Nancy after talking to her for, I think it was probably close to 3 hours, the initial conversation I had with her. And when I hung up the phone, I just sat back and I said, you know what? That's what's good about the paranormal is you get to meet nice people like that.
Yes,
and you get to meet nice people like her, like John Tenney, like Johnny Hauser, like Chad, like you, John. It seems like the right people are in it for the right reasons, and hopefully they'll stay in it for a long time. And so we're glad that we were able to actually get the story out there about Villisca. We'll be back next week with another edition of the program. You can tune in every Saturday night at 10 o'clock. We will be here. Well, we got the Bruin season, so we might start a little bit late, but generally they let us go on okay. We'll get shifted around a little bit for some of the West Coast games, but we'll be here every Saturday night to talk with you about the paranormal. SpookySouthcoast.com is our website if you would like to find out more or get the past episodes. So until next week, for Matt, for Stephanie listening at home, for John Brightman, I'm Tim Weisberg. We want you all to stay spooktacular.
For local news, talk, and sports, the South Coast turns to AM 1420